about because I've already done it once and it didn't turn out because there was something wrong with my tape recorder. And I must say that the lady who I'm going to be speaking with today and visiting with her in her home is not only one of the great beauties of the motion picture screen of the 1920s and 30s, but she's also a very good sport because she's let me come back again and pester her once more for stories about William Desmond Taylor and Mary Pickford and Burt Lightail and some of the people she worked with. So if you're a film fan by now, you must have guessed that I'm visiting today on Orange Drive in Los Angeles with Claire Windsor.
I want to welcome you to my home again for the second time. May I call you Richard? Your last name is so difficult. I don't know what your listeners would like to hear about. I've told my story to you so long. It was a long one. What do you think they'd like to know about me?
Well, you mentioned names, and mine, which I agree is difficult. Why don't you tell them about yours, which was a strange name to begin with, and how you got such a pretty name that you have now?
All right. I was born Ola Kronk, and I lived in a little town in Kansas until I came out here with my mother and sister. We came out here for my mother's health, and I was told to go to work at the studios if I wanted to have a little fun and pay extra work. And the lady who managed the apartment where we were living had a daughter in pictures, so she helped me. And I went out to the Lasky studio, which was on Vine Street, almost at Hollywood Boulevard and Vine. And of course, it isn't there anymore. And across the street were orange groves. Oh, it's a beautiful boulevard and very popular, you know. I don't know what's happened to Hollywood. It was such a popular place, the boulevard, that we used to shop there and go to restaurants. And so I went to work as an extra for a few months. This was way back in 1919. And it was in 1920. I was having luncheon in the commissary at the Lasky studio, and a gentleman by the name of Philip Smalley came up to me. He said, my wife, Lois Weber, would like to meet you. She heard that you're just the type she's looking for her next picture. She was the only woman producer in the industry at that time. So I went over there and I met Lois Weber, and we talked for about 20 minutes. And she said, well, if you have the courage, I'll have the patience. And I guess she knew she'd have to have a lot of patience because all I had done was just extra work and having a lot of fun at it. I didn't know the troubles that were coming. So she signed me up for the picture, and before the picture was over, it was before the picture was over, she said, I don't like the name Ola Kronk. We've got to change that name. And she worked with a numerologist, I thought, for about 3 weeks. And later on, I found out that Frances Marion named me. And I met her at Mary Pickford's house about 3 or 4 years ago, and she came up to me and she said, do you know who named you Claire Windsor? And I said, well, I think Lois Weber and a numerologist. She says, no, I named you. She said, I thought you should be Claire because you were so fair, and Windsor because you were so patrician. And of course, Lois Weber tried to keep me patrician all through the 2 years I was with her. And so she decided Claire Windsor was my name, and Lois Weber started publicizing me, and I became known as her star, her discovery. And I think I made about 4 pictures a year with her. By the way, Louis Calhern was in my early pictures with me. Do you remember Louis Calhern?
Of course.
She discovered him too. He was playing in the Beachcombers in a theater here, and she liked his looks, and he was just the type she was looking for. So we co-starred in about 4 pictures the first year, and then the second year also we co-starred. And she farmed me out to the studios, and it was late in 1922, almost at the end of my contract with her. She farmed me out to Louis B. Mayer's studio to make One Clear Call with Milton Sills. Do you remember him? And I think he died soon after this picture. He dropped dead of a heart attack. And Irene Rich was in that picture too, and Henry Walthall. He's dead too. And Mr. Mayer must have liked my work because he called me into his office one day and he said, when my contract expired, would I come to see him and talk contract with him before I signed with anybody else? And I told him, of course, I'd be delighted to. But right after that, a certain thing happened that just about stopped my career. I was invited to the Ambassador Grove to the opening of Maurice and Hughes, a dancing team, and everybody was there. And at that time, I was working on a picture with Mickey Nealon. My contract had expired, but I jumped at this opportunity to make the picture with Mr. Nealon, and the salary was doubled, you know, and that looked good to me. As I told you yesterday, money talks. I made a picture called Money Talks once, and it really does. So during that picture, it was when I went to the Coconut Grove with Mr. Marino and a party, and my dinner partner was William Desmond Taylor. I had never met him before, but I thought he was very charming, and they sent for me in a car, but he drove me home. And during the evening, we spoke about his secretary or butler, or maybe he was a chauffeur. Anyway, he worked for him, and when Mr. Taylor was in Europe for a vacation, Mr. Sands signed his name to the bank account. I guess he had the power of attorney to do it, and absconded with all of his money. And so when Mr. Taylor came back, he found out he had no money in the bank. And Mr. Sands disappeared, and I don't think he's ever been heard of since. So naturally, when Mr. Taylor was murdered, which was 3 nights right after I was seen with him at the Coconut Grove, and I was working all night, those 3 nights, out at the Vernon Country Club. And I didn't know, when I read in the paper, that they were looking for me. They said as soon as a certain actress is found, perhaps some light would be thrown on the murder. And, pardon me, and I thought it was too bad. I didn't know him well enough to be sad over it, but I did feel very badly about it. And they finally found me down at the Santa Fe Station the 3rd night. We were working down there, and Mr. Nealon kept the reporters away from me until I had finished the last scene. And then they came up to me and showed me the morning paper, and there my picture was on the front page, saying that perhaps I could throw some light on the murder. And this was a damaging part of the story. It said that I had been seen out with him the night he was murdered, which was 3 nights before, really, and that I did not return home that night. And the next morning, his body was found cold and stiff in his luxurious apartment. Now, you know, I should have sued the paper for that, because I wasn't out with him the night before he was murdered at all. It was 3 nights before, and I didn't go home. I was sleeping all night, working all night, and sleeping all day. And that was for three nights. We worked all night. And so I did call the district attorney, Mr. Woolwine. He was our district attorney at the time, to see if he wanted to question me. And he said, no, unless you have something you want, you know, and want to tell me. And I said, no, I just met him the once, and I don't know anything about Mr. Taylor's life, anything about him. But his name was linked with Mary Miles Minter and Mabel Normand, if you remember. And so I thought my career was ended, because in the paper it said everybody's who was connected with the murder would be barred from the screen. Well, Mabel Normand and Mary Miles Minter both were barred, but I thought I was going to be too, because Mr. Mayer called me up and wanted to see me, and I thought he wanted to talk contract, because I had promised him that when I was freelancing, I would come over to see him to talk contract. But no, he wanted to take me off the cast of One Clear Call, the picture I just made with him. He said that he had a wire from New York saying that my name couldn't be shown, and that not to publicize me. And I said, I think it's very unfair, Mr. Mayor, because it's great injustice, because I don't know the man. I met him this night just by chance. Mr. Marino invited him as my dinner partner. And so I guess he finally decided it wasn't very fair, so the picture went on and it was shown. And right after that, I signed with Golden. And the first thing they did was to farm me out to the studio where Mr. Mayer was making his pictures. He had his own studio then, to make a picture for Mr. Schubert called Rich Men's Wives. And I believe it was really the best picture I ever made. Anybody could have made a success of it. It was a terrific story. And The rushes were wonderful. Everybody was raving about the rushes, and Mr. Mayor called me in his office, and he said, "You broke faith with me. You signed a contract with Golden, and you promised you'd talk contract with me before you signed." I said, "Mr. Mayor, you called me over here, and I was just delighted, thinking you wanted to talk contract with me, and you didn't. You just wanted to take me off the screen." And I guess he forgot about that. So then he said, "Well, let me try to break the contract," because he read it and he thought it was a miserable contract. Then he phoned me and he said, "I can't break it." So I said, "All right." And in about 4 months, he owned that contract. And I went to him and I said, "Will you give me a new contract?" And he said, "No." He said, "You're one of the assets. That's why we bought. And if everybody came to me and wanted a new contract, where would we stand?" So I had to finish out my 5 years with Gold. It became Metro-Goldwyn-Mayer, as you know. But they didn't cast me in any pictures to brag about too much. I played in 3 pictures with Conrad Nagel, and had a lot of fun working with him. And then I went to Africa on a picture with First National. They farmed me out to First National to make this picture over on the Sahara Desert. And Bert Lytell was my leading man. And before we came back to the States, we were over there about 3 months, we became engaged. And eventually we got married. But it only lasted about a year and a half, 2 years perhaps. I believe if that picture had been made here, we had never been married. It was the romance of the desert, the thousands of stars that seemed so bright that they looked like a casket of jewels. And the moon was always so lovely, and those rides out in the desert to watch the sunset. It was romantic. So during the time I was married to Bert, this house I'm living in now was offered to us, for a trade of property that we had out in Home Hills. We had 2 acres out there that these people wanted very badly, and they wanted an even exchange. But Bert didn't want to settle down. He didn't want a home, so we turned it down, and we were divorced soon after that. And these same people came to me and offered the same, because I got the 2 acres that Bert and I owned, and he got all the rest, but he gave me those 2 acres. And they said, "We'll give you $5,000 cash besides." So I said, "All right." And then I owned a home. But it's a duplex. It's income property, which I think was smart of me to buy income property instead of a big home probably in Windsor Square. That's where I wanted to buy, in Windsor Square, because my name was Windsor, and I always felt they named it after me. I don't know whether they did or not. But I've been very happy here. It's everything in it's old. I bought it in 1927, and all this furniture. I love carved wood, and I did the needlepoint chairs, and carpet's the same old carpet, not worn out. It looks just as good as it did when it was laid, and so I'm happy here. I love living with old things. I wouldn't change it for anything, and put in a white carpet, make it very modern, and you see my paintings on the wall. I did them. I took up painting when I retired in 1930, about 37 or 8, I think it was, when I gave up pictures. However, I did a stage play with Al Jolson. I toured the country from the East Coast to the West Coast, a 6-month tour, and then
It was wonderful, was it not?
oh yes.
Lena Vasquez was in that.
Lena Vasquez was in it, and Ruby Keeler toured with us a little bit, but she wasn't with us all the time. And it was nerve-wracking for me, because people frightened me. Every time I went on the stage, I thought I'd have a heart attack.
You have such a pretty voice, and you still look so attractive. I wonder why you left movies, because you were able to make the transition into talkies.
Well, I believe that I realized that talking pictures would be a little bit too much for me. I think you'd get ulcers if you made pictures too long. Oh, it's a rat race. I tried it. I did 5 pictures, talking pictures. They weren't A pictures, they were B pictures. I'm not too proud of them, but they paid me a lot of money. And then when I found out that the stage stars were wanted more than the screen stars of the past, I thought, well, perhaps I'm too. So I went to Cuba with some friends of mine from Minneapolis, and I was away a whole year, and that was a mistake. I think that's when I realized that perhaps I was finished, and decided to take up other work. And I think my work here, taking care of my garden, which I love, and doing my painting, and I make almost all my own clothes. All my friends envy me because I have many more clothes than I could have if I had to buy them. But life goes on just the same, and I keep healthy. I believe if I were in pictures that I'd be a nervous wreck, really.